Hey, what's going on everybody? This is NGS and welcome back to another episode of One Truth Prevails, the weekly web series where you guys submit topics for me to ramble on for 15 minutes straight. This topic was submitted by Power Juso and it actually holds some relevance to the last couple episodes we were talking about. Particularly in the debut episode of One Truth Prevails, I talked a lot about cross-generational video games. I talked a lot about moving on from one generation of consoles into another, and one thing that kept popping up, and it's really been, along with parity, a big force in the past couple of years, and that is the topic of cross-generational video games. And like with some of the other videos we've done, we always seem to start out One Truth Prevails with a definition of what the particular subject matter is. So what are cross-generational video games? Basically, cross-generational video games are video games that are released not only on newer generations of consoles, but on older ones as well. That's it. It's not that exciting. I know for a couple of people who are watching this, they're wondering to themselves, why is this such a big deal? Why is this worthy of a video topic? To be honest, it really isn't, because it is something that has been so common in the gaming industry, but like with many things, in the past couple years, people have really blown it up. I'm not going to necessarily say a lot of people are wrong in this subject matter. I'm not going to say a lot of people are right in this case. I just want to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on the matter. So, cross-generational video games, like I said, at its core are games that are released across multiple generations of consoles. So, to give you guys an example, we'll take a recent game, such as Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 was released recently on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, but it was also released on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So you have a total of 5 platforms that this one game is appearing on. And to a lot of people at the end of the day, that actually seems pretty cool, because the majority of people in the world are going to be able to experience this game in one way, shape, or form or another. It doesn't really matter what system that they have. But surprisingly, a lot of people are opposed to the idea of games being released on multiple systems. Now, why, you may ask? I mentioned a lot in the parody video that everybody was, against the idea of video game parody because it's holding back platforms from reaching their full potential. That's a similar case with cross-generational video games, because with cross-generational video games, developers are, for the most part, held back by numerous things. One thing that I think a lot of people kind of take it misleading is when they see that a game's in development for PS3 and 360, they see that as developing for the lowest common denominator. How the game is going to be started on PS3 and 360 and then ported over to next gen, and then the next gen versions, as a result, are not going to look as good as they should. You're kind of right, but you're kind of wrong in that case. What's been going on in the whole cross-generational video game debate is not necessarily the lowest common denominator theory, it's more the resource management theory. And by that I'm speaking of which, the amount of resources that is necessary to get this one particular game running on more than 2 to 3 video game platforms. Because when you look at it like how it was on PS3 and 360, developers really didn't have to worry about releasing a game on any other platform other than the 3, because for the most part they were guaranteed that they were gonna make their money back, break even, or in some cases make a profit. But now you're developing on more than 3 systems, and of course we're speaking on high budget AAA games. We're not speaking about movie tie-ins that are made on shoestring budgets. We're not talking about any of those type of games. We're talking about the big releases that you know are going to be hyped up, that are released at the end of the year. So why do developers and publishers go out of their way to release a game across multiple systems? And what is it that is really holding them back from the game reaching its full potential regardless of the platform it's on? Since we're at the start of a new console generation, we might as well tackle the biggest one of all. It is the new console generation. With new consoles, of course, that means developers are going to have to take the time out of their day to learn the brand new hardware. And with time comes manpower that's required, and with more manpower, that means more money is required. It's no shocker to anybody that video game budgets have been on the rise for the past couple of years, and with a new generation of systems, obviously budgets are going to get higher and higher and higher. And then from there, you have to count the fact that they're also releasing this game on older platforms, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Granted, most developers nowadays have gotten the hang of the hardware and they know exactly what they're doing with the games, but that's still 2 really big viable platforms that they have to deliver quality experiences on. They have to do Q&A. They have to do so many things to make sure the game is running well when it launches alongside the other versions. So you have so many things that are really inhibiting the development of the game, and it's really taking a lot of the time out of the game. And that is why I think a lot of people feel it's not reaching its full potential, because when you have to cater to so many platforms at once than the standard 2 to 3, there obviously are going to be some cutbacks along the way. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Not all developers out there are having to cope with the fact that they're releasing games across multiple platforms due to a publisher concern or what have you. A lot of developers are smart. They realize that, hey, we have a certain amount of people out there who can work on our games and release it in a timely manner and utilize the hardware to its fullest capabilities. We can't, for the life of us, release the same game across the older systems. So they hire third-party developers to come in there and make the older generation versions of the games. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare is a really good example of that. The main team developing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC is Sledgehammer Games, whereas on the PS3 and Xbox 360, to my knowledge, I believe it's High Moon Studios, the guys who did the Transformers and Deadpool video game, if I remember correctly. That is a huge AAA video game that is being handled by a separate team. And it's not just third parties who are smart to this. We also have the first party games coming out that have different teams developing the games. Forza Horizon 2 is another great example. The Xbox One version was developed by Turn 10, the main guys behind the Forza series, while the Xbox 360 port was handled by Sumo Digital. That is one way that a lot of developers are really coping with the fact that they have to release their games across multiple platforms. They usually have two separate teams working on the games, and mind you, there are instances where you have really big glaring differences between the two. There are times where the newer generation version of that same game will have more features, you know, better graphic fidelity, a lot of things that come with a newer generation of systems, whereas older generations of the games may be gimped in some way. Granted, a lot of people don't like to gimp out the older versions when it comes to features and such. They want to make sure it's a even playing field across the board, outside graphics, frame rate, etc. You know, the main bells and whistles that come with a brand new generation of systems. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are just some developers who flat out don't care about the older generation of consoles. One of the biggest examples as of late is Batman Arkham Knight. That game is going to be exclusively on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Even though the series was such a big hit on the 7th generation of consoles, for their particular vision, that's the key word in this situation. For their vision of the game, they just felt that the older hardware obviously couldn't run it. And that's something that a lot of these developers have been doing as of late. The 7th generation of consoles is by far the longest generation of systems. It ran for almost 10 years, 8 years capping out with the Xbox 360. So when you have a generation running that long, more than the standard 5, a lot of developers get tired of the older tech. They don't want to have to deal with making the cutbacks. They don't want to have to deal with, you know, bottlenecks on the older consoles. So when they get a chance to get a new system, it's like a kid in a candy store. They just get so uberly ecstatic about the new possibilities. And they don't want to give people a gimped experience that does not accurately reflect their vision. And oh boy, Techland sure did piss some people off with that, because the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 version of Techland's upcoming Dying Light has been canceled. Yep, canceled. Straight out the gate, they announced that it would be released across all these systems, but recently they came out and said, yeah, it's current gen only. Current gen only. Another theory that I have for developers when it comes to releasing their games cross generations is the testing the water theory. Basically, with new consoles, you never know what you're going to get out the box. Even though you have such smash hits like PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, you never know with the next generation of consoles if they're going to replicate that same success. And I attribute that a lot to the Wii and the Wii U. The Wii was a smash hit. It sold over 100 million units worldwide. But when you looked at the attach rate of games to gamers, and you looked at the sales of the system's library that weren't Nintendo titles, and then moving forward into the Wii U's life, you could see that the Wii U is still on life support. Granted, it's getting a lot of Nintendo games, but again, it's a Nintendo system. So you expect that stuff. So when a lot of developers look at that and they see, well, the Wii was such a big hit, but you look at how the Wii U's doing, that's definitely a big reason why we see a lot of the same stuff going on with PS4 and Xbox One. A lot of developers are just worried because they're not going to make their initial investment back. So it's safer for them to release a game across multiple platforms. So even then, if the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version for some reason don't perform up to expectations, they have the other versions that are able to cover it. So at the end of the day, the positive side of this from a business aspect means that developers are safe in the end if their game does not perform well overall. Basically, that's why cross-generational video games are such a big thing as of now. I don't really consider it such a major problem in the gaming industry because at the end of the day, it really isn't. It's just that early transitional phase period that's really pissing a lot of people off, because a lot of people still aren't convinced with the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Wii U. They don't really feel the need, the urge, the desire to go out there and buy the systems because they're not really seeing much of a difference when it comes to, you know, the type of games that are out that they couldn't get on PS3 and 360. And fair enough, that is true. We're still waiting on the main meat and potatoes of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but when it comes to some of the developers, they're just ready to kick the bucket. It's definitely a whole different world, looking at it from a, you know, a different pair of spectacles, stepping into someone else's shoes to really understand why certain people want to move on to the next generation while others are perfectly content where they are now. So what do you guys think about cross-generational video games? Is it such a big deal that people, the fanboys, are making it out to be? Post your comments down below. Submit your topics for the next episode of One Truth Prevails. And I've decided to change things up a little bit. Since that series is still in its early phases of production, we're still trying to work out the kinks and get its own style and flow, all that jazz. I'm going to be opening it up to not just gaming related topics, but if you guys want to know my particular thoughts and stances on things pertaining to the anime industry, things pertaining to manga, things pertaining to the entertainment field, movies, all that stuff, comment down below. Like I said, we're still in the early days of One Truth Prevails, so there are a lot of things that I really want to experiment early on so we can really solidify and find this series' niche. But till that time, from me to you for now, I'm Yes signing out, and like always, One Truth Prevails.